The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. Thanks for joining Manx Radio this lunchtime. We're on Mannin Line, open line through till 1. Tomorrow, the Treasury Minister, Dr. Alex Allenson, will be on Mannin Line. But for today, whatever you want to talk about, call 66 13 68, text 166 177, WhatsApp, same number, 166 177, and you can email the studio@manxradio.com. It's 7 minutes past 12 now, and let's get to Jill. Hi, Jill, you're on the air.
Oh, hello, Andy. Glorious day on the island today, isn't it?
Gorgeous.
I have a question for your listeners, please. It's an SOS question. I'm having visitors over from Austria at the weekend, and I like to give them our Manx kippers, cheeses, queenies, Noah's Bakehouse bread. They love it. And I thought, because they're enthusiasts of whiskey, I wanted to get a bottle of Manx whiskey because it has won a gold medal award in the NY International Spirits Award. And went yesterday, we went to Tesco, they have the gin and they have the vodka, but no Manx whiskey. Went to Wine Right, the same. Went to a deli in Douglas, the same. They have the vodka and the gin, but no Manx whiskey. Went to Timwell Mills, the same.
What did they say when you asked them?
They didn't really know. Oh, one lady said, I think this was at Timwell Mills, that it's too new. But how can it be too new when it's winning awards everywhere? So I didn't get anywhere fast yesterday. So I was wondering if anyone listening could tell me where I could purchase a bottle. Is there a distillery maybe here?
Okay, well, I'm sure somebody's going to know this. Where can we buy Manx whiskey?
I really want to try it with my guests. Really, I want to show off, really. It'll be so exciting just to sit there and try it for the first time.
Fantastic.
And I'm very proud that we've won an International Spirit Award.
Excellent. Right, okay. Well, so that's today's first...
So anyone listening?
Yeah, okay. We appreciate that, and yes.
Thank you.
All right, take care now. Thanks for calling today. It's 9 minutes past 12, and let's get to David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just listening to, I haven't got the full details of David Ashford regarding reducing the planning issues. And I just wondered, when the own planning system is not doing anything for the buildings we've already got in government ownership, 2 pubs, the QB, and down near Derby Road there, we've got the old school, Park Road, we've got the Summerland site, the bus station as well, slip that in. We got all things, and I would have thought he would have had some direction to say what are this government doing to move them forward, or what they're doing, or are they waiting for the arm's length organisation, which is under government, which they can get ultimate money on from one of the banks.
Well, they say what he says is he wants to speed it up and simplify it. That's really the thrust of it.
Well, on little sheds and stuff like that, that's an absolute nonsense. What we're looking for is the bigger stuff. We've still got on the quayside, Newsome's. What are we doing there? And what about that one that government owned that's got all the scaffolding at the bottom of Summer Hill? Yeah. Which the old stables there.
I mean, the thing is now, because at this point it gets embarrassing, because I'm trying to remember how many TTs ago was the Quarterbridge open? When was the Quarterbridge last open for TT or MGP?
I think it was a few years ago, because I think it was rented back by the pub. just to open for TT Week.
But I mean, it gets silly, doesn't it? We look disorganised because people will come there. Quarterbridge is an iconic place. The television's there, everything there, and you have this kind of gaunt, empty citadel, a shell of a place, just sitting there like a broken tooth, looking at everybody, and we kind of look at each other and say, well, something must happen.
Yeah, well, maybe it's an ideal question you could ask the Treasury guy tomorrow, because just say to him, what are things that are being done outside of government that entrepreneurs or people who are doing stuff, buying land and doing things up, instead of whinging at people all the time regarding what are they doing? Because they got caught, the pants got caught down regarding the one at the stables there. And I think that was a revenge tactic against the Newsom site, when the Newsom site should be developed right down by the harbour there. What are people going to think when they come back for TT and look at it again? And I'm not blaming the developer because he's tried all sorts. Because even at the bottom of the gasworks hill there, how many holes have we got in the ground there waiting for?
And the thing is now, I think somebody's moved into the Trafalgar pub now, because you see people delivering groceries and some lights are on there. I don't know whether they're ghosts or what they are, but I mean Trafalgar pub it just looks sorry for itself. And
the other one that's going to slip into is the tower, the old tower that have the bridge there. When you come around the roundabout, it's right in front of you. What are we doing about that to enhance it or do something with it? And the other one, our favourite one is, Andy, isn't it? The scoreboards.
Oh, crikey.
What are we doing about the scoreboards? Where's this politicians that's supposed to be responsible for the TT and whatever? I'm sure if I sent 6 letters out to different motorcycle manufacturers, they'd all say, well, we'll give you 20 grand each, see what happens.
Okay, all right, anyway, thanks for that. Good to hear from you.
It's a nice day anyway on the island.
That's if you're listening elsewhere around the world, it's a beautiful day today, one of those beautiful Manx days. But we've talked about the TT scoreboard before. All they say is, nowadays, everybody's got a smart device and they can read the telemetry, they can read the website and what have you. The trouble is there used to be a scoreboard there. We may be used to it not being there because we drive past it every day. But for the people who come once a year for a couple, it's an iconic thing. It's like the Tower of Refuge. The scoreboard was always there. We've taken something away that was there before. A raft of measures aimed at speeding up and simplifying the planning process are a significant step in the right direction. That's the view of the Cabinet Office Minister ahead of changes coming into force on the 1st of March. David Ashford, MHK, says the changes will be widely welcomed.
There are a lot of things at the moment that have to go through the planning system that really can be covered by permitted developments. They are very, very rarely challenged or very, very rarely refused. So what we need to do is ensure that the planning system is constantly kept updated and that it's relevant to the modern world, and that's what these changes do.
In basic terms, does this mean for somebody who simply wants to maybe replace windows, doors, etc., they'll no longer require planning permission?
It does, and there's things like, for instance, improving provisions in relation to decking and fencing height. They haven't been changed for a long time. Also, we're now seeing more and more air source heat pumps coming through. At the moment, the planning requirements on them are quite restrictive, so it's relaxing some of the restrictions in relation to air source heat pumps, and also allowing for the alteration, for instance, in things such as the size of windows and installation of doors, and also increasing the flexibility in relation to things like roof lights. So all stuff that you would find in a modern build.
Take a homeowner who maybe puts their property on the market for sale, but during the conveyancing process, they find they don't have approval for a specific minor works that's happened in the past. From March the 1st, that particular thing wouldn't require planning approval anyway. Would they still have to seek retrospective consent?
So in terms of those that haven't sought consent previously, obviously it would depend upon the time period as to when that is. There's different rules as to how long ago it actually was, so it would depend upon that.
Now, there's been a lot of criticism of the planning process in recent times, not least from the construction sector. Do you think the changes announced will be enough to allay their concerns?
So I think it's a step in the right direction. And the thing with planning is it's a very fine balancing act. We've got to ensure that things remain relevant and up to date, but equally it can't just become a free-for-all. We've got to actually ensure that there is still rigour in the system and that we don't just allow all sorts of developments that wouldn't necessarily fit in.
David Ashford, and I just wonder what your thoughts are. Text, email, call and WhatsApp. And Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. I seem to remember that the Quarterbridge Hotel was registered as a protected building of historic interest. So how come they're not protecting it then?
Well, I mean, they would probably say they are because nothing's happened to it. It's just there. The paint's just fading on it.
Well, I call it entropy or something like that. I don't know. By the way, did I hear the news earlier? Farmers silently protesting over inheritance tax. That's interesting. Let's hope they don't put an access zone around there. By the way, Andy, did you see Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's speech at the CPAC conference in Maryland?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. She was saying freedom comes before anything else. She wants people to reaffirm their deep-rooted identity. Her three tenets are identity, democracy, and freedom of speech. So it's quite a powerful speech, that I thought. And speaking of freedom of speech, there's a landmark ruling in the Court of Appeal of England and Wales. If anybody would like to have a look at it, it's Scottow, so SCOTTOW versus Crown Prosecution Service. It was concerned with offensive tweets made by Scottow about a transgender individual. And in the original ruling in 2020, in the early part, a district judge had given Scottow a 2-year conditional discharge and a £1,000 fine under the 2003 Communications Act. However, 10 months later at the Court of Appeal, the decision was overturned by Lord Justice Bean and Mr. Justice Warby. And they stated, free speech encompasses the right to offend and indeed to abuse another. The two judges decided that the relevant parts of the 2003 Communications Act were not intended by Parliament to criminalise forms of expression, the context of which is no worse than annoying or inconvenient in nature. So I wonder if it will be interesting to see if new cases are tested in courts, assuming people are able to defend themselves.
Well, everything's subjective, isn't it? I mean, and it's often said that offence is taken and often not given. So with the fact that people can take offence where it possibly isn't intended, I mean, who knows where that's going to end? As you say, it may end up who's got the most money in court.
Well, that's it. And that, by its nature, is not fair. And, you know, that Court of Appeal of England and Wales is the second highest court in the country. So, you know, that was coming down from, you know, very senior judges. And the other thing I've noticed, just quick, another piece of proposed UK legislation is going through at the moment called the Data Use and Access Bill. Now, this aims to reform the UK Data Protection Authority, which I would have thought will probably come here, including initiatives for digital ID. But the bit that worries me would be that the decision-making ability would be given over to artificial intelligence, making it difficult, if not impossible, to get meaningful explanations about decisions and then exercising one's right to appeal against automated decisions. So does this not raise the question about further degradation in transparency and accountability and legal process? I don't know.
Well, AI surely wouldn't be able to decide that because there are so many nuances in expression, emphasis and things like that. Surely AI can't figure that out.
Well, I mean, obviously they're going to have some form of human intervention, you'd hope. But the problem with, I mean, AI, for all it's dressed up, is really a language compiler, but a very fast one because it has access to a lot of things. But it's all about the biases of the trainers. So you can ask ChatGPT, for example, a whole bunch of questions, which when you actually sit back and think about it, you can see that it's biased. And you can even ask it questions about what it said, and it will give you a contrary opinion, which is actually in line with what what you think. So, it's as limited as the, garbage in, garbage out, you know what I mean?
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, Julian, thanks for calling today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
21 minutes past 12. All eyes are on the House of Keys and the discussions around the assisted dying bill. The Health Minister has said, you may have heard in the news, no provision has been made for an assisted dying service yet. So they haven't even asked anybody if it's something they may possibly want to do. Amendments to the bill have been put forward in LegCo, and that's currently being discussed and thereafter voted on. Claire Christian, the Minister, was asked by Chris Thomas, MHK, what preparatory work's been done by her department so far. This is Claire Christian.
This is because the private member's bill on assisted dying is currently going through the due legislative process, and therefore it would not be appropriate for the department to use its resources on a bill that has not yet been approved. The department's professional pharmacy advisor did review the bill to provide a response to the House of Keys Committee on assisted dying last year, following a request specifically about the pharmaceutical context and to provide technical comment on the bill's clauses.
There would seem to be a difference between the Jersey and Westminster bills and our Isle of Man bill in terms of assisted dying, because in the Isle of Man we're legalising assisted dying, but in Jersey and Westminster they're having a piece of legislation that provides for the provision of an assisted dying service and the funding for it. Does the Minister have any briefing about whether or not my understanding of that situation is accurate or not? Has any preparatory work been done in that space? Mr. Trappai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Department would need to take independent legal advice via the Attorney General Chamber. It would be worth reiterating that the Government does not designate resources to a private member's bill ahead of the bill being passed in the branches. So any specific work to assess legislative impacts and the subsequent requirements to enable the Department to incorporate additional functions will come at a later stage.
Claire Christian, MHK, she added she's not aware of any associated funding that's earmarked and agreed to support the implementation of the bill. That's where we seem to be the focus of the world as well. All sorts of people are looking at what's happening on the Isle of Man today. The scoreboard says, WhatsApp 101, the scoreboard was only ever intended to give information to the pit crews and was never intended to be viewed by people sitting on the grandstand. Its purpose was to allow the pit crews to see the progress of their rider. The pit crews no longer need it as the riders are now tracked on an app. So it would be a complete vanity project and that money could be better spent on frontline services, says 101. Ballaglass Glen Whiskey in Ramsey, apparently, is where it's all happening. Fenodry done a whiskey. After listening and considering the implications of this year's budget, I'm at a complete loss as to what Dr. Allinson's intentions are apart from financially crippling the NI fund, says Big John. These are John's words, which is under pressure. It's smoke and mirrors hiding the reality that our financial state is in, the worst state it's been in for 75 years, with financial reserves at an all-time low. Well, not really 75 years. 1984, John, things were bad. 2,000 people out of work. 2,000 people out of work. Do you remember the winter work schemes, people going off the island to work elsewhere just to get some money in? So perhaps not 75 years. But tomorrow we'll ask the Minister exactly where he thinks he is with the budget and where it's going to lead to. And you're more than welcome. You can get a question in if you want to get a question on the answer phone, which will play out, 682631, or you can email studio@manxradio.com, or you can take your chances tomorrow on the phone, text, email and WhatsApp. Regarding the drop in standards in planning, take a long, hard look at the photograph on the front of the Courier. It will be a joke. But look at the standard of the brickwork. No high-vis, no hard hats, no boots, no goggles, wrong saw for cutting timber, incorrect fills for the windows, step ladders instead of a platform. This is what the public is ending up now with. Literally, says Ali.
Discover a fabulous range of watches, gifts and jewellery at Ramsey Art Gallery with top brand watches from Blover, Citizen Eco Drive and and Storm to Acura's Seconda and Timex. Plus, all watch purchases come with free lifetime watch bracelet adjustment service. There's stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course a fabulous gallery of limited edition prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite Ramsey RNLI shop.
No matter how much you need to dig, or how much you want to dump, Fox Group Isle of Man offer an extensive range of plant hire, long-term lease and sales. We're the island's exclusive supplier for Louis Gong excavators with immediate delivery. Our machinery comes with a complete service package with finance plan options. Call John on 458946 to discuss your plant needs. Fox Group Isle of Man, part of the Fox Group of companies.
Whether starting a new business or building up your existing business, come and talk to the accounts and tax experts at Nicola Bowker & Co. With their holistic approach to business advice, Nicola Bowker & Co will work with you to achieve success. For accounts that work, call 861 271.
Celebrate the Snug being 15 this year and save hundreds of pounds with 15% off the supply and installation of solid fuel stoves. Sale ends 28th of February. Visit the Snug's Ramsey showroom 6 days a week or call 818187.
Tonight at 5:30 here on Manx Radio, join Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Cobb, for the new series of Countryside.
I catch up with young farmer Thomas Cleater from Ballakeenan Farm in Derby to see what he's up to having an open farm.
I went along to see the exhibition Off the Moon at St Germans Cathedral in Peel and spoke to the Dean there, Nigel Godfrey. And also I popped along to Rendu Farm in Derby, where I caught up with Stuart Allenson there and also his son James, who's over from university.
That's all in Countryside tonight here on Manx Radio at 5:30. And don't forget, you can download and subscribe to the podcast for free at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
27 minutes past 12. Wayne's with us now. Hi, Wayne.
Turn the radio off.
Oh, sorry. We've lost you, Wayne. Thanks for that. And Howard joins us then. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Yeah. No, David talking about both Davids, David Quirk and the planning minister, about planning on the island. What is happening? Can anybody give an answer to the dreadful scene down there in Duke Street where that bird cage is now sitting? There used to be the KFC and all the buildings along there. Everything seems to have ground to a halt again.
It looks to me, Howard, like they're just keeping that planning going by doing a bit of work every now and again, because occasionally you walk by and there'll be some clanging. Somebody will be there with an angle grinder or something, doing something, or a wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
So it's the old thing about keeping the planning going by just doing a bit.
But that there is, it must be over a year, 18 months now since they put that flooring in ready to accept concrete. And I don't know whether that was all lying down on the South Quay, on that other site that was down there. But that aside, if it wasn't, there was a team came over and put the flooring in. But all that steel work is exposed to all the salt that comes in, and we get salt up here up at Alex, so it must be horrendous down there. But a lot of the clanking you're hearing now is deceptive because they're working on the front of that site and on where that new hotel is.
Yeah, Tavere are working there on the old Royal Bank of Scotland site. Yeah, I mean the thing is with that as you say, that skeleton that's in Duke Street. I mean, you're tempted to just ask a few questions. Have they run out of money?
Yes.
Have they run out of ideas? Have they fallen out? Have they fallen out amongst themselves? It looks like that hotel's going to be built before that's finished. So.
The length of that there, it seems to have gone very, very quiet. There's not even any questions being asked in the council or in the government, and the government are losing money in a sense because if that building had been put up, there would have been rateable value there. Now, what is there? There's nothing because you can't, get blood from a stone.
And also, Howard, I think one of the part of that is because it's going to be flats higher up, and apparently they're building. If I'm right, if what I'm led to believe is true, there's supposed to be a car lift in there that will take cars up to park in there. Now,
well, if you look
that hotel
from the promenade, there are two concrete shafts. one is larger than the other. So I should imagine one would be for cars and the other be for pedestrians.
But I mean, that's going to be enormously congested, because at the back of what's going to be the hotel and retail and some apartments on the prom, that tiny road at the back, the service road leading down to Fort Street, is going to be really, really busy, especially if you're winching cars up and down inside an apartment block.
Yes. Well, that's the plan, and people have passed all that. But again, you're going to be parking cars. Now, we're coming into the electric car era with its inherent dangers, and you're going to be winching these cars up onto the roof with people living below and retail and offices.
And they're a lot heavier than ordinary cars.
Yep. And, as you say, they're considerably heavier. And if the plan for doing away with IC engines comes about and everybody's running electric cars, will that be strong enough? But then aside, it's an ugly looking thing, and it's starting to look tatty. Plus, some of the signs I noticed the other day are, for whoever they are, global something.
Yeah.
They're starting to be pulled off, and they're going to be a danger to pedestrians walking through Duke Street. So let's have somebody must have some sort of answer to this, because they played hell about the Africa House. It was burnt, and now they're talking about replanning and rebuilding. The Haven Homes down at Castletown, various other places around, they ripped the backs out of all them. But this thing is sitting there right in the centre of Douglas, where everybody, visitors and everybody comes through. And as you said before, what will people think about the Newsom's place when they're coming back here again for TT week? And they got exactly that. That was right opposite where the TT shop was. Yeah. And these people are looking and say, "Oh, for God's sake, has that not been done yet?"
Well, that in itself as well. You say, the TT shop, and I'm a great fan of hospice, and that hospice shop is nice, but it's not the TT shop. I mean, that TT shop used to be iconic. It was open till about 11 o'clock at night during TT, that's just another thing that's not there anymore.
No, I don't think we have one, do we? In essence, we had a pop-up shop there in Strand Street, selling bits and bobs. But as you say rightly, that was a private business, and that man has the perfect entitlement to retire, cease trading or otherwise, and that was his entitlement to do so. But that vacuum is never filled. But I would like to know, and somebody must have an answer somewhere, either in the council or in the government. Why has that come to a halt? That must be It must be celebrating close on his 4th birthday now.
Yeah, okay. All right, appreciate that. Thanks for calling today.
Take care, bye now.
Okay, 27 minutes to 1. Does anybody know then what's happening to that skeleton of steelwork, which is where on Duke Street, opposite the hospice shop, what used to be the old TT shop, who's in charge there? Who owns it? What's going to be made? They keep on making these grand promises about something that's going to be there. But as it stands at the moment, it just looks like what it is. A building site. The skeet is, by the way, and this is purely skeet, so just take it with however many grains of salt you want. Apparently the government are looking again at acquiring a new scoreboard. Is that so? That may be just skeet, but we'll find out. It was disclosed in Keys. It was disclosed by the Treasury Minister. Governments used £90.4 million of the NI fund during COVID. £70.4 million of that was paid to companies. Chris Thomas has highlighted that amount needs to be repaid, and has asked Dr. Allenton when and how is that going to happen. Says Andy. Do listeners think this repayment should happen? COVID seems years ago, doesn't it? Well, it is years ago. It seems like a parallel universe. But lots of money was paid out during COVID to keep companies afloat. Certainly the hospitality industry was kept afloat by that. So we'll find out more. Anyway, Chris Thomas has highlighted the amount. £90.4 million was used, of which 70.4 was paid to companies. Mark said, Howard's right about the old KFC site. What an eyesore. And I can see them having to pull it down again. says Mark. Let's get to the lines now, and Peter's with us now. Hello, Peter.
Oh, hello, Andy. It's Peter Milcott here. I've just come back from the Keys. Well, I came back about 11:15 because I wanted to hear how they were going to respond to the consideration of the council amendments on the assisted suicide bill. And the majority of the amendments they were going to accept, or there was a motion that they be accepted. There were a couple that, or no, I think there were three that they were not going to accept. One of them was the fact that the LegCo had, in fact, weakened the residency requirement. I sincerely hope that they're not going to accept that. I had to leave before that one came up. But the other one of significance was Amendment 10. Let me read you what the LegCo wanted to insert into the bill. They wanted, by Amendment 10, to say that the assisting healthcare professional, the person who has I'll read it to you. It says, a person who has self-administered an approved substance must not be left alone at any point before the person's death. What they were referring to was the fact that the bill as it stood was that although one clause said that there was to be someone with them, but it went on to say they didn't necessarily have to be in the same room, which was completely contradictory, because once you leave the room, you're not in close proximity, as the bill says, with that person. It just defies logic how you can be in close proximity with someone when you're outside the room without any indication of how far outside the room that you're entitled to go. Now, the council very sensibly saw the absurdity and the very unsatisfactory nature of that, and they put an amendment in, I'll read it again, that the person who has self-administered an approved substance must not be left alone at any point before the person's death, which was a very sensible amendment. I was astonished and saddened to see that on the consideration of the council's amendments before the Keys, it's probably now been considered, but I couldn't stay to listen to it. It said this: Amendment 10, and the proposal was that the House do disagree with the council's amendment. That is about a person not being left alone. And so, if they have taken a vote and they disagree with the council's amendment, what it means is a person takes the poison to kill himself, and the person who is present, there could be obviously only at least one, it would seem, that person does not necessarily have to stay in the same room. They have to be in close proximity, but somehow it does say they don't have to be in the same room, without saying how far away from the room that they could stray. Now, what does this mean? It means that a person could die in the most excruciating agony if this poison, because after all, you're taking poison to your body, and your body's natural defences will fight against it. And there can be all kinds of complications which have been well documented in other jurisdictions. And the person who's supposed to be with them might not be aware of that. If they're not in the room, how can they observe? How can they keep a close watch on someone who they know is about to die? Now, that wouldn't happen in the present circumstances. Nobody would be, who was quite close to death, would be left alone and where they might not have immediate help. And the other thing is, I don't quite know whether because there have been so many amendments to this bill, the person who has to be in close proximity, in the original wording of it, didn't necessarily have to be a registered general practitioner. It could have been a pharmacist or someone. Now, that person wouldn't feel competent to deal with extreme emergencies. And so you could have the situation, unless they've put a provision in to make it clear that you've got to have a general medical practitioner there. What could happen is somebody hits some severe complications, even if that health professional is there. They might not be able to deal with it. How are you going to get a general medical practitioner to come to the place where that person is? But I come back to this amendment. They might not even know that because they're not required. They're required to be in close proximity, but outside, but somewhere else. Now that is the madness that we've got going through the legislature, and that alone absolutely denounces, in the strongest possible terms, this madness of this whole bill. And I'll tell you one thing, the fight has not ended. We might be fighting on the Isle of Man. We shall fight outside the Isle of Man on this bill, because it needs to be stopped.
Okay, Peter, thanks for calling. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
19 minutes before 1. A note in from Julia, who says, Andy, I walk Port St Mary Harbour often. It's one of the most popular walks. Unfortunately, it's very poor condition. Awful potholes on the underway at the moment. It's an accident waiting to happen. Just a comment, does anybody else find this walking around the underway in Port St Mary? And also, my next topic is people who defraud Social Security are laughing all the way to the bank. They may end up owing us thousands of pounds and paying £5 a week. Surely we should make an example of them, says Julia. Thanks for that. Text, email, call, WhatsApp, and it's been waiting there, I think, for about half an hour. How are we doing, Juan?
Oh, you just woke me up again, Andy. Oh, head of news yesterday was throwing big words at me again that I couldn't spell, Andy. It's I phoned the doctor up. I said, Head of News, I said, I've got euphorisms. He said, don't worry. He said, it is not contagious.
Oh, wow.
So I'm all right then. I'm all right. Just a couple of things there. I don't know whether Julian mentioned or not. There's a meeting coming up in March by the PCS group about the access zone bill at the Methodist Church in Douglas, I think.
Yeah, that's right. If you go to Manx Radio's What's Ons, it's on our What's On site. If you go to information, it's on there. It tells you all about it.
Yeah, I think it's on every site. And I think Peter, who's just been on again, is speaking at that, which is good. Peter's very eloquent in what he speaks about and studies everything quite thoroughly. So, yeah, people, if they're interested in going down that. And, of course, the PCS group itself is it's quite an interesting group. If people have got a little bit of free thinking and free speech, then go down and join the group and listen to what's going on.
Free speech is great.
Free speech is great, absolutely. Let's keep it long may it rain. We're talking there about the change in face of Douglas with architecture. I'm just talking about the change in face of Douglas in total. And I'm going on to a very hot subject at the moment, which broke yesterday, about the jail for a man who sexually assaulted a vulnerable teenager in city centre.
Oh, yeah. Before you say that, I've just had an email in about that. Just give me 10 seconds. It was from Samantha, who said, Manx Radio's reported a man from Pakistan sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl and has been sentenced to 7 years in prison in Derby. Why is the Manx taxpayer going to suffer the financial consequences of this crime? How much is it going to cost for 7 years of incarceration? I estimate it'll cost over £1 million. Well, if it's 150,000 a year, that'd be £1 million. Surely he should be deported immediately. Well, I think the point is this man isn't the only non-Manx person who's committed a crime and is imprisoned here. There are lots of people who aren't from the Isle of Man who are in Derby, so there's no difference between him and any other non-national criminal. What should we do? Do we have an extradition agreement with Pakistan or elsewhere? Anyway.
Well, yeah, going by the 2022 FOI report, I think it's £80,094.50 a year to keep someone in prison, which is about $1,540 a week of taxpayers' money, which probably is going to equate to around about $500,000 of taxpayers' money to keep this person in prison. What do people think about that? My point here, before people go on about racism and everything else, we have got a great number of people who come to the island, migrant people who are in our hospital service and dentist service and everything else. But, and I've spoke about this before on here, we have to be very, very careful of the type of immigration and migration that we're getting here in with migration. My point on this is, the 45, I'm just going to read from your Manx Radio article here, the 43-year-old who was assisted in the dock by an Urdu interpreter. Now, again, I guess, how are we integrating these people that are coming into our society here? We're a small island, and there's only so much of this that we can take without destabilising what we have as an island. So I believe, and I've spoke to people who come here to work before, they had to go through an interview procedure to assimilate themselves with the island, and it was quite an extensive procedure. One person I was talking to had to wait 6 or 7 weeks before he could actually start his job to go through this interview. So the question I would ask here is, if we've got a person who is here on a lower level job, should we say, and needs an interpreter in court to deal with 3 sexual activities with children and 1 of penetration. They need an interpreter. What interview stage did he go through?
Well, it's interesting. We'd like to know, really, what English language requirement is there to get a visa here or to get a work permit? Is there an English language requirement? I think that's the question, isn't it?
It is the question, and the other thing we have to be mindful of here, and I think Howard spoke about this last week, but I've brought this up many times, that we got people coming here now from countries who their way of life is totally different. And I live in some of these countries, I've been in some of these countries. Their way of life is totally different than our upbringing and way of life. What is legal to them over there is not legal here. So they are not assimilating to the country, and this is a big problem. And it doesn't seem to be, from this case, it doesn't seem to be solving or getting cured. This could go on, and we should be very, very mindful. This government should be very mindful. And I've said it again, I'm going to say it again now because of this broke, of what or the type of person that we're bringing into the island. And again, before anyone starts coming on howling about me being racist and all that, it's not about racism, it's not about colour, it's about the person that we're bringing into our society, whether they're going to fit in this society and whether they're willing to fit in this society, and with their sexual orientations or whatever that they have.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Stuart.
Take care, Andy.
13 minutes to 1. Steve dropped me a note and just said there were actually 3 Manx white people convicted of a horrendous rape literally a couple of months ago. We take the point. That's not the point we were making. The point was, is there a deportation? Is there a scheme between the Isle of Man and Pakistan for this particular person? That's really all we were asking. All right, lots and lots of messages to get to. We'll get back to the lines in just a few moments' time. And I just want to, have you seen the overview, government document overview of the public service workforce, says Alan. It seems the government's concealing the reality of workforce changes. Take the Department of Infrastructure, Public Estates and Housing Division, 149 staff in total. How many of these are manual workers compared to 10 years ago? Very few, says Alan. Their numbers have been drastically reduced, with most of the work now outsourced to private contractors. In effect, the workforce has been replaced with managers. While the government may have fewer direct employees on paper, it's paying a premium for external contractors to carry out tasks that were once handled in-house. This is top-heavy. The structure is inefficient. It's costly. Too many managers overseeing a shrinking number of actual workers. What do you think? Thank you, Alan.
I began to struggle with the stairs, but I didn't want to leave our family home. So my daughter told me about Acorn Stair Lifts and their new showroom in Douglas. I was able to try the stair lifts and find the right one for me and the home I love. They were so friendly. The whole process was hassle-free and they offered the whole package from installation to servicing. Choose the island's first choice for stair lifts. Acorn Stair Lifts, South Quay, Douglas.
Call Acorn Stair Lifts now on 672 414 or call into our Douglas showroom.
We are ready to go at B&B Furniture with a wide range of manager specials throughout the store. If it says I'm ready to go, then it is ready to go. Priced in-store for immediate delivery and no long wait for stock to arrive onto the island. Get the furniture you're longing for with no wait, no deposit required and 0% finance available when you get ready to go at B&B Furniture. It's all here under one roof at the B&B Furniture 3-storey showroom in Snugborough.
B&B Furniture.
Get ready for a magical March at the Empress with an array of fantastic events. Kicking off with comedy on the 1st of March with impressionist Christopher G. On Friday the 21st, you'll love the Greatest Showman tribute. And on Saturday the 22nd, it's musical magic, both with welcome drink, 3-course carvery and fabulous entertainment. Book a table of 10 and get one free place. For information, bookings and more great events, call 661155 or visit theempresshotel.net.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Mark's with us now. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Andy. How are you? I just saw on the online news, obviously amongst all the assisted dying discussion, that Julie Edge tried to pass an emergency debate or an emergency motion or something on the line with regards to the development of the Kroger gas field. I'm not sure what prompted her to have that debate, but I do know that the license expires on Friday, so something has happened to prompt Julie Edge and eight other MHKs who voted for the emergency debate to prompt them to warrant it enough of a serious situation.
When you say the license is expiring, which license?
Because they extended it for 2 months, didn't they, in December?
Right.
So was it December or January? So to have a discussion. So I understand the license expires in at the end of this month, and that's it. And I presume Julie Edge,
which is Friday, as you say.
Which is Friday, yeah, which is Friday. So something's happened to prompt Julie Edge to have an emergency debate, and I can only presume that. And interestingly, 13 members, including the Council of Ministers, quashed that and decided that, having a debate, I presume, to try and resolute or try and make or allow Kroger to happen in some shape or form was completely rejected. So,
what's your view?
My view, well, reading the papers, it could be worth £2.5 billion to the Treasury. We're hemorrhaging money. We're dipping into the national reserves. Manx Care is hemorrhaging money. I think we can all see the state of the Isle of Man at the moment, and the government. I can only presume, Andy, and I hate using the term, this woke net zero ideology, which I think is actually. It's changing. The world's changing completely. They're siding with that. I mean, I can't see any rational reason why the Council of Ministers would not want to progress the gas field. I think it's just sad for the Isle of Man. Maybe there's something to do with Orsted. I don't know. That's just speculation, I suppose. But I can only put it down to a woke net zero ideology. And I'd be gobsmacked if most of the Isle of Man would not want £2.5 billion flowing into the exchequer, because I think, we're a pretty practical lot on the Isle of Man, and we seem to have voted in a woke Parliament who just can't see the benefit of exploring gas on the Isle of Man. I can only presume that's the reason why Julie called in, because it, sort of tried to pass that motion. So. I presume that's the end of it, which is sad. Just wanted to highlight that.
We'll find out more. I appreciate that, Mark. Thanks for bringing it up today. And Olivia's on now. Hi, Olivia.
Hello.
Hello, Olivia. You're live on the air, Olivia.
Right. I would just ask one question. Why do we keep following all the UK laws when we don't really have to?
Which UK laws in particular?
Well, it's the VAT and it's the other stuff that we come across. And I think, the UK, I was brought up in Cyprus. I know Sharia law. I've been in my teenage years, because my father was in the Foreign Office, and, you know, it was like Hong Kong. Things are not what they used to be.
Okay, all right. We appreciate that, Olivia. Thanks for that. It's just that your radio was on, so it was getting a bit confusing, but we appreciate your point. Thanks for calling us today. The Birdcage building in Duke Street is subject to a court case, says Texter 223. Do excuse me. An investor, apparently the investors have fallen out, so that's it. We shouldn't catastrophize about electric cars, says 376. There's been a lot of talk about employment status in the construction industry. It's not been scrutinised as it should be. It was said on the show last week that a certain painting contractor was paying cash in hand, but looking at the COVID salary support payments, the same painter got a very big payout compared to other companies, and the construction went back to work early, says that. Well, thank you for that, Pat. I think that should be looked into a little more. I'll pass that note on to our newsroom. Thanks for that message today. One of the excuses that Garth commissioners use for putting the rates up by 7% this year is that they have to pay towards two tips, the Eastern Civic Amenities side and towards Balladool in Ramsey. So, as Balladool is closing, will we be getting a refund? Will you be getting a refund? As we've lost the northern side, and the good folks in Mackle and Ramsey, all thanks to Bride now, will have to drive to Douglas, or will the money go to Laxey as usual, says Derek. The scoreboard should be replaced. If the Quarterbridge is a registered building, so should the scoreboard. It's our heritage, it's iconic, it's viewed by the world. Phones aren't allowed in the pits, says Dave, so they shouldn't be using a phone in the pit to check an app, just like a fuel station. Good point. So do you think the scoreboard is iconic? Do you think we should have it back? Or has it been superseded by technology? That's it tomorrow. All about Treasury, all about the budget, all about money. Dr. Allinson is on Treasury Minister. Join us tomorrow at noon.
WINT.